But we went to an abortion clinic to have the pregnancy test done because they offered discreet and free pregnancy testing. At-home pregnancy tests did not exist in the 1970s like they do today. When the worker told us the pregnancy test was positive, we walked out of the abortion clinic and out to the elevators. It was then that I broke down crying quite loudly for fear of telling my parents, who were strict, somewhat hot-tempered, and not to mention clueless to the fact that I was sexually active, especially at such a very young age. I was definitely crying loud enough that the worker from the clinic heard me and came out to the elevators and coaxed us to come back in.
Maureen explained that she was terrified to tell her parents. The abortion worker told me and Maureen that her parents need never find out, and that abortion was affordable and readily available without parental consent. It truly felt to us like abortion was the only way out of this frightening situation. Personally, at that time, I did not see anything wrong with abortion. First of all, it was legal. I also believed that it was not an actual baby or human being early on in pregnancy. I figured it was just a bunch of cells that had not taken any human form yet. I had no idea that our child had any human form, let alone a beating heart.
I, on the other hand, at least understood the fact that I was about to lose a child. It didn't matter to me if the baby was only a bunch of cells at the time, which it wasn't, of course. I love children, especially babies. Having an abortion had nothing to do with not wanting to become a mother, even at such a young age. The night before the abortion, I was rubbing my abdomen and talking to my soon-to-be dead child. I told my child that I wish I could keep him or her. And without the knowledge or consent of my parents, I lay down in a room full of strangers, including the doctor who I never met before, and allowed them to perform a surgical procedure that ultimately ended the life of my own child. No 14-year-old should have the right to sanction such a procedure like this that puts the mother's life and future fertility in danger and undoubtedly causes a horrific and more than likely painful death of an innocent unborn child. It is ludicrous to think that I would have had needed parental consent to get my ears pierced or even for a school nurse to give me an aspirin, but for an abortion, no permission needed. Understandably, I was crying in the recovery area because of what just happened. The abortion worker told me that I was the only one crying and that I could have other children someday. For months to come, I was plagued off and on with deep sadness.
You also would have thought that we would have learned from our past actions, but we found ourselves pregnant again less than a year later. This time, Maureen, who was now 15 years old, would not even consider having another abortion. She reached out to a pro-life agency, Illinois Right to Life, which helped her break the news to her parents. Maureen's family wanted her to have an abortion, but Maureen refused. She never told her parents about the first pregnancy, but knew she would not have had to put herself through all of this if she was going to have another abortion. After all, she could have done it again without her parents ever having known. Maureen was now truly fighting for the life of our child.
There is not enough time to tell you all the turmoil that took place for many months, but Paul and I were eventually married on my actual 16th birthday, which was less than a month before my due date. We also moved into an apartment that my grandmother owned while waiting the birth of our child. Thanks be to God, we were blessed with a precious baby girl in August of 1976. We truly felt that God had given us a wonderful gift and blessing. I also remember holding our newborn baby while recuperating in the hospital and gazing at her precious little face, and I actually began to cry. My tears were actually for the first baby that I aborted. I knew that I had taken a life of something just as precious. I truly understood that I was a mother of two. One child was alive and the other dead. In the months to come after our daughter's birth, I began to have nightmares, which is not uncommon in post-abortive women. I would dream that something bad was going to happen to our infant daughter and that we might be punished for having had an abortion. I wanted to make peace with God, not because of the nightmares, but for forgiveness for the regrettable sin we committed a little more than a year earlier. We both went to confession and received God's mercy and forgiveness.
Maureen and I eventually bought a home of our own and went on to have 3 more children. We were active in our faith and things seemed to be going relatively well. We very rarely spoke of our abortion experience because it seemed behind us. Little did I know that Maureen was going to experience trauma from the abortion more than 10 years down the line. After our 4th born child, Maureen experienced postpartum depression. She became quite anxious and was worried that she might be a possible danger to our infant daughter. The anxiety grew to a point that she was worried that she could be a possible danger to all of our children. I assured her that she would never harm any of our children. She sought out counseling, and they told her the same.
Even though most people in the mental health field might chalk this up to simply an emotional or psychological illness, I truly feel that the devil played his part in it as well. Every time I told myself that I would never hurt my children, I could feel the response, "But you killed one of them already," and pointing back to the abortion. Thanks be to God, a friend put me in touch with a priest, the late Father John Gregas, that specialized in post-abortive healing. Through several sessions with this priest, I was able to find the healing that I desperately needed. At the last session, the priest asked Paul and I to ask God to put into our hearts and minds the gender of our child. Believing it to be a little girl, we gave her the name Mary Catherine. We also have a memorial brick which was laid on the prayer walk at Marytown in Libertyville. It reads in memory of our aborted child. It was the only tangible thing that we had to mark her existence. Though Mary Catherine lived only for 8 short weeks, she will never be forgotten, for a child is a child, no matter how small. My parents never knew about Mary Catherine until they met her in heaven. I had the thought that as we were preparing to lay my mother to rest, I said a prayer and told my mother that I hope she can see Mary Catherine and that they're together in heaven. In my heart and mind, though not audible, I could feel my mother saying in the most fervent manner, "Maureen, she's beautiful, she's beautiful."
So as we mourn together the loss of Mary Catherine and the millions upon millions of other babies lost to such a heinous act and sinful wrongdoing, let us continue to be the voice of those precious children who never saw the light of day and proclaim loudly, "Let them live and abortion no more."
In closing, I would like to address our Illinois lawmakers and all lawmakers working to repeal laws regarding parental consent for minors when it comes to abortion, as well as their pro-choice constituents. I believe a minor is capable of weighing in on the pros, cons, and risks, both short-term and long-term, when it comes to abortion. I stand here as a witness to say that you folks are completely out of your mind. At the age of 14, I knew nothing about abortion, except that they were going to remove the baby somehow. I did not understand the procedure until I was lying on the table, and I was told I was about to feel intense cramping at certain points and hear the sound of a loud vacuum. I knew nothing of the possible physical complication and psychological effects that could and would befall me. I certainly didn't know that the child within my womb had a beating heart and was about to be violently dismembered and extracted. It pains me to hear such ludicrous statements such as the ACLU of Illinois, who put out something concerning minors seeking abortions. They stated, and I quote, "We need to trust youth in our state to make health care decisions without forcing them to risk their health and their safety." So why is this only in regard to abortion? If the youth of our state are so well equipped and with thorough decision-making capabilities, then why have any laws in place when it comes to minors? Crazy thinking has run amok in our society. God help us all, for the ways of the world are more evil than ever. But God is our hope because Jesus already won this battle on the cross.
We are most grateful that you came out today to remember our Mary Catherine and all the babies brutally put to death in what should be the most loving and secure place to dwell. We thank you for listening to our story and for all you do in this fight for life.